Hi, this is Miss Terena, and today I'm going to read another funny story about Mrs. McNosh. I read Mrs. McNosh Hangs Up Her Wash about 3 weeks ago, and then I found another story about Mrs. McNosh. Oh my gosh, Mrs. McNosh. Written by Sarah Weeks with pictures by Nadine Bernard Westcott. And on the cover, it's a little shiny, sorry, there is Mrs. McNosh. She's fallen into a puddle. She's wearing a yellow blouse and a pink skirt. And next to her is a big white dog. Oh my gosh, Mrs. McNosh. Let's see. All right. Mrs. McNosh took a walk in the park. Here she is, Mrs. McNosh, with her pink dress and her yellow sweater. She has a blue ribbon in her hair. It's a beautiful day walking in the park with green grass and a tall tree. And she is walking with a white dog. She's holding the leash. Mrs. McNosh has a dog, and they're walking in the park together. Looks like a beautiful sunny day. I wonder what will happen. Her dog saw a squirrel and started to bark. Bark, bark, bark. Stop barking, stop pulling, said Nellie McNosh. But George wouldn't listen. Uh-oh, here's Mrs. McNosh. Her hands are out wide. She's holding the leash. Oh, she's holding it tight. Stop barking. George, the white dog, his name is George, sees a gray squirrel, starts barking, when all of the sudden, snap, the leash breaks. Uh-oh. Oh my gosh! He zipped through the flowers and skipped through the trees, barking at bicycles, babies, and bees. There he goes, zoom, running after the squirrel. There's George running through the flowers, and right behind him is Mrs. McNosh. She is running super fast. There's a kid on a bicycle watching them go, and a baby going wah, and a bird, eek, running and running, chasing. Mrs. McNosh is chasing her dog George through the flowers. He dove and he wove right past Mrs. McNosh. I'll catch you, cried Nellie. But then, oh my gosh, splat! George the dog has jumped into a big yellow boat, trying to get that squirrel. Here comes Mrs. McNosh. She's running to the edge of the lake. Look out, Mrs. McNosh! Oh no! Splat! The boat sprang a leak, so George had to jump out. I'll catch you, cried Nellie. She caught a big trout. A trout, that's a type of fish. They're very delicious to eat, but I don't think that's what Mrs. McNosh wanted. She splashes into the water, right on her face. Oh no, poor Mrs. McNosh is holding in both hands a great big trout. He crashed through a wedding and trashed the buffet. I'll catch you, cried Nellie. She caught. Oh no. There's a wedding party. Oh no, the bride. She's wearing a beautiful white dress going, oh no, she's got her hand on her head. Oh no, stop the dog. The beautiful wedding cake is falling over. There's the groom in his black tuxedo. All the guests standing on the beautiful table. Oh, there goes George the dog. He is a white dog running on the table's blue tablecloth still after that squirrel. And you know what? The squirrel is smiling. I think the squirrel's having fun being chased by a dog. Mrs. McNosh, I'll catch you, cried Nellie. But she caught the bouquet. Splat! She falls face first into a bunch of wedding cake. Oh no! But she caught the beautiful bride's bouquet, a bouquet of beautiful flowers, red and yellow and purple and blue. Oh my, so pretty. Oh, but now Mrs. McNosh has cake all over herself. George keeps running. Come back here right now, hollered Mrs. McNosh. But George just kept running. Oh my gosh. Oh no, he knocked over some baseball players. This is a guy in a black outfit. I think he's the umpire. Plop right over. Mrs. McNosh is chasing her dog. She still has her yellow sweater on, and she's reaching her hands. Oh, she almost had him. The dog leaps over a wall, and he has a red cap in his hands. A baseball cap. George, the dog, just took that boy's baseball cap. Oh my gosh. He bumped the plump umpire, then jumped the stone wall. I'll catch you, cried Nellie. Oh, yep, I was right. There's the umpire. He fell. And Mrs. McNosh leaps over the fence and catches, poof, the ball. She caught a baseball. Not the dog, but in two hands, she caught the ball. And there goes George, still running. All we can see are the back of his legs. Zoom! He's such a bad dog. He danced and he pranced. Then he shook and he rolled. I'll catch you, cried Nellie. Look at this silly dog. So there's a fountain. There's Mrs. McNosh chasing her dog, running around the fountain in the park. And look at this dog. Man, now they're just playing. He's not even running anymore. He's just doing a little dance on the side of the fountain. This is the dog. He's white, so it's a little hard to see him. But next to him is the gray mouse, who was also doing a little dance. They're just playing with Mrs. McNosh right now. How rude. I'll catch you, cried Nellie. She caught a bad cold. Splash! She fell down into the fountain. And now there's water pouring all over her. She is soaking wet. Oh no, Mrs. McNosh. There's her red feet sticking up out of the water. Her pink skirt is all wet. Her sweater's wet. She's soaking wet. And there goes the dog again, jumping off. Oh, what a terrible dog George is. My goodness. That's it. I give up. I can't catch you, it's true. I know when I'm licked. I've been licked, George, by you. She looks very unhappy. She's sitting. Mrs. McNosh is sitting on a park bench, a blue park bench. She has a couple of tissues in her hand, and she's wiping off the dirt and the wedding cake and the fountain water and the pond and the trout. She looks very sad. I know when I've been licked, and I've been licked by you. Oh, there's George, sitting there, watching her. He finally stopped running. Now he's just looking at her. He's wagging his tail, and he has his tongue out. I think he had fun. So here's the thing. I know I've been licked. That means I've been beaten. You win. She's giving up. You win. I give up. So it's not like George the dog actually licked her. He won the game. That's what that means when someone says, I've been licked. Means I've been beat. They ran faster than me. So Nellie walked back to her house, all alone. And there on the porch, she saw George's old bone. I wish he'd come back, sniffled Mrs. McNosh. Then she opened the door. Oh, and she cried. Oh, there she is. She is still wet and covered with just there's cake on her beautiful yellow sweater, and she's walking up her steps to her front door, and There's a dog bone on the stair. Oh, she's so sad. She's all curled over. She's tired and she's sad. She can't even stand up straight anymore. Poor woman. She opened the door and she cried, "Oh my gosh, look who's here. George. George the bad dog. But now he's home. He raced home. He got through the little dog door that's here on the bottom of the door, and he's there next to holding Mrs. McNosh's slippers." Oh, she looks so happy. She's standing up straight again. She's got her hand up on her heart like, "Oh, surprise, exciting, I'm so happy." Oh, I think George is sorry because he's sitting there and he's holding her slippers and wagging his tail like he's saying, "I know you're tired. Come in, take off your wet shoes and relax." The end. Mrs. McNosh. Oh my gosh, that is hard to say. Oh my gosh, Mrs. McNosh. I love Mrs. McNosh. I have a silly dog who likes to chase squirrels too, and when we go for walks, I have to hold on tight to the leash. My dog will walk perfectly fine, but as soon as there's a squirrel, if she could get away, she would. I don't know if I'd give George, that Mrs. McNosh's dog, a treat for that walk. Have fun. Have a great day.